The night I came home from the hospital, my husband had already changed the locks. I was still wearing the same loose sweater I had been discharged in, the one that smelled faintly like antiseptic and milk. My body felt heavy, sore, stitched back together in places that still burned when I moved too fast. And in my arms, my son. 5 days old. Sleeping. Completely unaware that everything around him had just been erased. I stood on the front porch of the house I had lived in for 8 years and stared at the door like maybe if I waited long enough, it would fix itself. It didn't. Instead, the porch light flicked on. And Daniel opened the door from the inside. Like a stranger answering someone else's home. "Caroline," he said, like this was inconvenient timing. "You should have called." I didn't move. Didn't step forward. Didn't step back. Just looked at him. "You changed the locks," I said. It wasn't a question. He sighed, already tired of the conversation. "It's temporary." Temporary. That word. Men like him loved that word. It made permanent decisions sound reasonable. Behind him, I saw her. Not fully. Just movement. A shadow crossing the hallway. But I knew. Of course I knew. Because you don't wake up one day and discover betrayal. You notice it in pieces. And then one day, you stop pretending you don't. "You need to go," Daniel said. That part was new. Not cold. Not angry. Just decided. I shifted my son slightly in my arms. He made a soft sound. The kind that makes your chest tighten without permission. Daniel glanced at him. Briefly. Like checking a box. "I sent you something," he added. "What?" I asked. "A transfer." I blinked. "What?" "Check your account." So I did. Right there on the porch. With my newborn son in my arms. Under the light of a house I wasn't allowed to enter anymore. $2 million. For a second, I thought it was a mistake. Then I looked up at him again. "What is this?" I asked quietly. "Support," he said. "For what?" "For you to move on." The words didn't hit immediately. They settled. Slow. Heavy. "And him?" I asked, looking down at my son. Daniel hesitated. Just for a second. But I saw it. "He'll stay here." Something inside me went completely still. Not broken. Not shattered. Just still. "You're serious," I said. "Yes." "With her?" I asked. He didn't answer. Didn't need to. "I can give him stability," he said instead. "A full-time environment. Support. Structure." I almost laughed. Not because it was funny. Because it was so carefully rehearsed. "You want me to take the money," I said slowly, "and leave my child?" Yes. There it was. Clean. Simple. Uncomplicated. The wind moved slightly across the porch. Cold against my skin. My son shifted again in my arms, his tiny fingers curling into the fabric of my sweater. And suddenly, everything became clear. Not what Daniel was doing. I already knew that. But what he didn't know. Because the truth was, Daniel thought he was in control. He thought I was weak. Exhausted. Recovering. Alone. He thought this moment was the end of my story. But the reality? I had spent the last year quietly preparing for something exactly like this. I looked down at my phone again. At the number sitting in my account. Then back at him. And I smiled. Just slightly. "Okay," I said. Daniel blinked. "Okay," he repeated. I nodded. "I'll take it." Relief flooded his face so fast it was almost embarrassing to watch. Good, he said. That's the smart decision. Smart. I adjusted my hold on my son. Pressed a soft kiss to his forehead. You're right, I said quietly. Then I stepped off the porch. Turned. And walked away. Not because I was giving up. But because he had just made the biggest mistake of his life. And he didn't even realize it yet. I didn't cry when I walked away from that house. Not on the porch. Not on the street. Not even when I got into the car. That surprised me. Because people think betrayal breaks you instantly. Like glass. Loud. Obvious. Final. But sometimes. It does something else. It sharpens you. My son slept the entire drive. Wrapped in a hospital blanket. Completely trusting. Completely mine. I drove without thinking at first. Just distance. Just movement. Streetlights passing one after another like a slow pulse. Until I reached the highway. And then. I made a decision. I wasn't going to a hotel. I wasn't going to a shelter. And I definitely wasn't calling anyone Daniel knew. I drove 3 hours out of the city. To a place Daniel had never been. Never even heard about. A small house near the edge of a lake. Quiet. Hidden. Owned under a name that wasn't mine. But I had access. Because a year ago. When things first started feeling wrong. I stopped trusting coincidence. That house wasn't an accident. Neither was what came next. When I stepped inside, the air smelled like dust and wood. Unused. Untouched. Safe. I laid my son down carefully on the couch. Watched his chest rise and fall for a few seconds longer than necessary. Then I locked the door. Only then. Did I finally let myself breathe. Not panic. Not grief. Just focus. Because the truth was. This didn't start tonight. It started a year ago. Back when Daniel first began working late. Not occasionally. Consistently. At first, it made sense. His business was growing. More clients. More projects. More pressure. But then. Small things started not adding up. He stopped talking about work. Not because he couldn't. Because he didn't want to. His phone was always face down. Always. He started taking calls outside. Even in the rain. And the worst part? He became careful. Not distant. Not cold. Careful. Like someone managing 2 realities at once. That's when I knew. Not suspected. Knew. But I didn't confront him. Because confrontation gives people time to prepare. To lie better. To hide deeper. So instead. I did something else. I watched. Quietly. Patiently. And then. I started digging. The first thing I found wasn't emotional. It was financial. A transaction. Small. Easy to ignore. But it didn't belong. Then another. And another. Payments that didn't match his business accounts. Transfers that weren't explained. At first, I thought. Maybe it's nothing. But I kept going. And then I found her name. Not in his messages. Not in his phone. In a lease agreement. A property. Paid in full. Not under his name. But connected. And the address? 20 minutes from our house. I remember staring at that document for a long time. Not shocked. Not even angry. Just confirming what I already felt. That's the thing no one tells you. By the time you find proof, your body already knows the truth. But that wasn't the worst part. Not even close. Because a few weeks later, I found something else. Something Daniel never expected me to see. A conversation. Not romantic. Not emotional. Strategic. I shouldn't have had access to it. But I did. Because Daniel underestimated one thing. Me. And in that conversation, I saw my future. Not as his wife. But as a problem. She's getting in the way, he had written. I remember reading that line over and over. Trying to understand it. Getting in the way of what? Then the answer came. Clear. Simple. Cold. She doesn't need to be part of the next phase. That's when everything changed. Because it wasn't just an affair. It was a plan. And tonight. On that porch. He thought he was executing it. He thought he was removing me. Cleanly. Quietly. With money. What he didn't know was that I had already rewritten the ending. I walked into the kitchen. Opened a drawer. Pulled out a folder. Thick. Organized. Complete. Every transaction. Every document. Every message I could access. A full year of preparation. Not to catch him. But to protect myself. And my child. I picked up my phone. Scrolled to one contact. And pressed call. She answered on the first ring. Did it happen? She asked. Yes, I said. A pause. And? I looked over at my son. Still sleeping. Still safe. He made his move, I said quietly. Another pause. Then. Good, she said. Now it's your turn. Now it's your turn. I ended the call and stood there for a moment, phone still in my hand. The house was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet where every thought sounds louder than it should. The woman on the phone wasn't a friend. Not exactly. Her name was Laura Bennett. Forensic accountant. 48. Cold mind. Precise. Patient. I met her 8 months ago. The same week I found the lease. At the time, I didn't walk into her office like a woman seeking revenge. I walked in like someone who needed to understand what was happening before it was too late. I don't need assumptions, I told her. I need facts. She studied me for a long moment. Then nodded. Then don't confront him, she said. Watch him. So I did. And Laura watched with me. Every transaction Daniel thought was hidden. Wasn't. Every account he believed was untouchable. Wasn't. And slowly. A pattern formed. Not just money. Movement. Planning. He wasn't just building a second life. He was transferring into it. Assets shifted. Contracts redirected. Ownership structures changed. And one detail stood out more than everything else. He was moving everything into positions where I had no legal claim. That's when Laura said something I'll never forget. He's not planning to leave you, she said. He's planning to replace you. At the time. That felt worse. But now? Now I understood something even more important. If someone is building a clean exit, you don't block it. You let them finish. Because a finished plan is easier to break. 3 days after I left the house, Daniel called. I didn't answer. He called again. Then again. By the 5th call, I picked up. Where are you? He asked immediately. His voice was different now. Still controlled. But tighter. Safe, I said. That's not an answer. It's enough of one. A pause. Are you alone? He asked. I almost smiled. Yes, I said. That was the first lie. You need to come back, he said. Things have gotten complicated. Of course they had. What changed? I asked. Another pause. Longer this time. The transfer, he said. There it was. What about it? I asked calmly. It's frozen. I leaned against the kitchen counter. Frozen? I repeated. Yes. And? I said. And I need you to authorize it. Silence. Then slowly. I smiled. Because that was the moment. The exact moment. He realized something was wrong. What do you mean? I asked. The bank flagged it, he said. Large movement. Compliance hold. It needs both parties to confirm. Both parties. He thought the money was a clean exit. What he didn't understand was that I had seen that account months ago. And changed something. Not illegally. Not obviously. Just enough. Enough that any large transfer required dual verification. Mine included. You said it was mine, I reminded him. It is, he said quickly. I just need you to. No, I interrupted. Silence. What? He asked. I'm not authorizing anything. His voice sharpened. Caroline, don't make this difficult. Difficult. I let out a quiet breath. You tried to take my child, I said. You changed the locks. You brought another woman into my home. A pause. Then, softer. More dangerous. And now you need something from me. Silence. I could hear it. The shift. Control. Slipping. You don't understand what you're doing, he said. No, I replied calmly. I understand exactly. Because while he was building his escape, I was building his collapse. You need to come back, he said again. No, I said. And you're not getting that money. Another pause. Then finally. His real voice came through. Cold. You think you can outplay me, he said. I looked over at my son. Still asleep. Still peaceful. And for the first time, I answered honestly. I don't think, I said quietly. I know. I hung up. The room felt different after that. Not tense. Not uncertain. Resolved. Because now, he knew. Not everything. But enough. Enough to panic. And people like Daniel make mistakes when they panic. I walked back to the table. Opened the folder again. And pulled out one final document. The one he had never seen. The one that mattered most. Because money wasn't the real problem. The accounts weren't the real problem. Even the affair wasn't the real problem. The real problem was what he had signed. Without reading carefully enough. The document had been sitting in that folder for months. Signed. Filed. Forgotten. At least, forgotten by him. I remembered the exact day Daniel signed it. It had seemed small at the time. Routine. We were sitting at the kitchen table. Same place where we used to plan our future. Same place where I used to believe him. He had been distracted. Phone buzzing. Messages lighting up his screen. Not even trying to hide it anymore. Just sign here, I said, sliding the paper toward him. What is it? He asked, barely looking. Updated structure, I replied. Tax efficiency. Asset protection. Words he trusted. Words he didn't question. He skimmed. Not carefully. Not the way he used to. That was his mistake. Because Daniel had stopped seeing me as someone worth paying attention to. And when you stop paying attention, You missed the details that matter. He signed it, without reading the last page. Now, months later, that page was the only thing that mattered. I placed it on the table and looked at it again. Not because I needed to. Because I respected it. A quiet clause. Simple language. Easy to overlook. In the event of marital separation or asset dispute. Primary control of all jointly structured financial channels. Automatically transfers to the managing party listed below. My name. Not his. Mine. The next morning, Daniel showed up. Of course he did. People like him don't stay away when they realize control is slipping. They come closer. He found the house faster than I expected. Not because he was smarter. Because he was desperate. I heard his car before I saw him. Gravel crunching. Engine cutting off too abruptly. A door slamming harder than necessary. Then. Knocking. Sharp. Fast. Impatient. I didn't rush. Didn't panic. I picked up my son. Held him close. Then walked to the door. And opened it. Daniel looked different. Not broken. Not yet. But cracked. You need to fix this, he said immediately. No greeting. No hesitation. Fix what? I asked calmly. The accounts, he snapped. The transfers. Everything. I leaned slightly against the doorframe. No, I said. His jaw tightened. You don't understand how serious this is. I tilted my head slightly. No, I said again. You don't. Silence. Then he stepped closer. Lowered his voice. You think you can take everything, he said. I held his gaze. I'm not taking anything, I replied. I'm keeping what's already under my control. That word again. Control. It landed this time. You tricked me, he said. I almost smiled. No, I said. I gave you exactly what you gave me. He frowned. Didn't understand. So I explained. You stopped looking at me, I said. You stopped listening. You decided I wasn't important. A pause. And then you signed whatever I put in front of you. Silence. Real silence. The kind that comes when someone finally sees the full picture. And realizes they've already lost. You can't prove intent, he said after a moment. I don't need to, I replied. It's already legal. His eyes shifted. Thinking. Calculating. Searching for an angle. There are still courts, he said. Yes, I said. There are. I stepped slightly aside. Just enough. Go ahead, I added. That confused him. File something. Start a case. Explain everything. I watched the realization hit him. Slow. Heavy. Because court meant exposure. The transfers. The hidden accounts. The second house. The money. Everything. And unlike me, he had something to lose. Reputation. Business. Everything he had built on perception. You wouldn't, he said quietly. I looked down at my son. Then back at him. You already did, I said. That was it. That was the moment. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just final. Because he understood. This wasn't a negotiation. It was over. Daniel stepped back slowly. For the first time since I had known him. He didn't have a move. No argument. No strategy. No control. Just consequence. He looked at me one last time. Like he was trying to find the version of me he thought he knew. She wasn't there anymore. Then he turned, walked back to his car, and left. I stood in the doorway for a long moment after he was gone. The wind moved lightly through the trees. The lake behind the house was still. Quiet. My son shifted in my arms. Let out a small, sleepy sound. I looked down at him. Smiled softly. "You're safe," I whispered. And this time, it wasn't hope. It was certainty.